Welcome to GA325, Week 6, Part 3 of the presentation. The cover of a newsletter is going to be very similar to a newspaper, with the exception of the content on the front being targeted to a smaller, specialized audience or a specific group of people. Newsletters tend to be weekly or monthly in production. Annual report covers tend to be simplistic and direct, and again, since that's annual, that's only once a year. The focus is the masthead, the year of the report, and the visual identity of the firm. The first section of the textbook deals with making the grid. Types of grids and their variations. The second section is breaking the grid, which involves a short history of the development and evolution of grid in layout design. Sections 2 also critique examples of designs which successfully break grid rules. Newspaper cover example. This is an example of another newspaper, USA Today, which uses a slightly different approach to cover design. We see many images and articles crammed together, although the main story is represented by the larger photograph. The table of contents is on the lower left corner and under the graphic. There are 5 columns, although the outer columns are wider. So USA Today would be probably one of the more visual newspapers, in contrast to a newspaper like the Wall Street Journal, for instance, that might not have any graphics potentially on there. So each newspaper, they're all confined to the same amount of space. However, what differentiates the brand is going to depend on the variation of images and text to help kind of grab the audience's attention and compete against them on the newsstand purchases. Magazine cover example. I found this an amusing alternative to the first magazine. This is a trade journal that appeals to a particular audience. Instead of a large photo or a celebrity, we have a horse. The rest is typical: smaller font articles on both sides of the horse's head, a red bar along the bottom, and a prize graphics. Notice how the masthead is going to be in line with how all the other magazines that are Canadian equestrian in the same font and size and placement right at the top. However, notice the light yellow color, which is taken from the browns that are in the photograph, creates good contrast so that the text and masthead is still emphasized. That same similar type of color is used over on the side there, as they have these call-outs and other articles that create a good contrast, and place them on areas that are in ambient places, not on top of the horse's head, but around the side. Here's an alternative magazine cover. This one looks like an imitation of Time magazine. It takes a minimal approach with only black, white, and red. There is no photo, just 3 large words to attract the readers. The masthead is there, and a volume, date, and issue is at the top. So they're mimicking Time magazine with the red border and the other little white outline. And then, of course, the font is in a similar font. I wouldn't say that it's in the exact one. But the minimalistic approach might stand out among other magazines because it'll be completely different than the ones that have photos. Newsletter cover example. Here's a newsletter cover that looks similar to a newspaper. The large photo appeals to the small audience of bicyclists. The masthead along the top and the bottom half of the page with the center column is just a table of contents to the inside. Another newsletter cover example, a different newsletter. This time the column on the left is the table of contents. It once again has one large image, the top vertical elements being the publication title and volume information. The main article begins in the front and continues to the inside. This has been done for years as a way to get readers to go deeper into the publication. Here's an annual report example. This cover is for a telenetwork company. It is much simpler but exciting and enticing. The main graphic element is the illustration of the planet with the connections going around it. The colors are limited to blues, whites, and yellows and oranges, yellow-oranges, I guess. The company name, the year, and logo are normally all that is displayed on the cover. Another example of an annual report, similar to the last, but some differences are the vertical type, the globe shape made up of photos, and the use of full color to just give a real visual impact. The photos and type and use of white space provide a good balance and harmony. And finally, we have a tabloid cover. It is broken into a simple grid with large blocks of color, background, and type to grab the eye. The photo on the bottom seems to be the main piece due to the size, but the other images compete with it because they are also in full color. This concludes the week 6 lecture. We have this 3 slides for the references. Here's the first slide. Here is the second slide of references. Here's the third slide, and actually we have a fourth. Here's the fourth slide.